Thank you, Mr President. My question is to the Minister for Employment. Minister, despite government programs such as the Jobs Victoria Fund, some of my older constituents report that they still find it hard to both find and to keep a job. This is particularly so for women. Victorians aged from 55 to 67 years are well represented in the ranks of the unemployed, and that older women, particularly those over 55, are the fastest growing group who are becoming homeless. Figures state that if we can lift productivity by 5% for the 55-plus category, this would provide an extra $48 billion into the economy. My question is, what does the government offer to older unemployed citizens in terms of targeted job placement programs, and how does the government ensure that businesses are not locking out older employees due to ageist stereotyping?
Thank you, President. I'd like to thank Mr Hayes for a really wonderful question. I have many questions in the employment portfolio, and I'd take the opportunity to update Mr Hayes and probably provide some further information by way of follow-up, so that for the purposes of him providing to constituents and other members who may wish to do so. But the Jobs Victoria program that was funded in the budget in October of last year is a more than $600 million investment in dedicated job service support and wage subsidies for people who have found themselves out of work through no fault of their own as a result of the pandemic. Now, we know that all of the economic data and the employment data in that sort of early reaction to the pandemic was telling us that there were some groups that were really significantly impacted. And this is because they're in the industries that are most profoundly impacted by restrictions. So young people and women, and particularly women over 45. I was given a horrific bit of data by my department about the likelihood of a woman over 45 returning the workforce if she's been out of work for a year, and I'm haunted by that. It falls off a cliff. And so as we were putting together the Jobs Victoria program, which does represent a threefold increase in employment services compared to historic levels, including as recently as last year, we designed it in a way to respond to those circumstances. I'm conscious and have been throughout that the labour market is changing pretty abruptly on a regular basis, and the more recent data does show quite a strong recovery in employment participation, unemployment and underemployment for women. So it's not quite as acute as it was, but that doesn't really matter to the people who are still impacted by it. So the Jobs Victoria, and just provide the House some of the key numbers from my most recent report. So we've now had more than 9,500 people make contact with the Jobs Victoria program through the hotline, through more than 5,000 interactions with our jobs advocates. They're the face-to-face people that help find your way through what's a really complicated system. 114,000 online registrations. So more than 4,400 Victorians are registered for mentor services and providing them. The Jobs Victoria Fund, this is the wage subsidy part of the program, is up and running and gearing up. It's been mainly picked up by really quite small businesses to date, but we're in the process of making sure that larger and medium-sized businesses know they can access this. I'm really pleased in response to your question to indicate that 66% of the people who have received funding support and job support through that program have been women.
Mr Hayes on a supplementary.
Thank you, Mr President, and I thank the Minister very much for providing that answer and her enthusiastic response on the subject, and her acknowledgement that this is indeed a serious challenge for us. And my supplementary question goes to, how does the government plan to encourage more mature-aged employees into the public service and report on such measures?
Thank you, President. In relation to supporting more mature-aged and mid-career women into the public service, as it stands, there are some programs that are So through this fund and through this program, that are now kicking up a gear in terms of doing just that. And I know Minister Stitt and I have had numerous conversations, and our departments are now working on a program to deal with what is a really chronic workforce shortage in early years education, and which is obviously direct public sector employment, and similarly with colleagues across government in other areas of quite significant workforce shortage. We have a program, a digital skills program, which technically sits in my innovation portfolio, but again, very much targeted at and geared towards mid-career women. And again, the sort of early data on the recruitment participation on that is suggesting that that's been designed in a way that is appealing to women to enter into a career with a very significant skills shortage.
Minister statement, Minister Pulford.